If you clicked on this video, it's probably because you want to get better at fighting. Well, in today's video, I have some tips for you guys to improve your fighting skills. But before we begin, I would like to ask everyone to subscribe, as we're almost at 250 subscribers, and I really appreciate hitting that goal. So yeah, let's go ahead and move on. Before we get into the tips, I would like to state that these things do not need to be done in order. Rather, doing these things over time will make you a better fighter. So don't try and take into what I say in consideration and try and do it all in one day. If you do it over weeks, months, and even a year, you'll become a better fighter and see more progress. Alright, let's begin. Now, the first piece of advice I'm going to give you guys is to develop solid mechanics. There's many ways we can do this, but the two ways that I did it were by playing Raiders Mechanic Training Map and free building a lot. These two ways were the best ways that I improved my mechanics by far, and I recommend that you guys do these every day if you guys want to see some improvements to your mechanics. Next, you're going to want to develop good aim. There's many ways to develop good aim, but the way that I did it is just by playing the game a lot. I played enough to where my aim eventually just got better by playing, but if you have enough time or you want to do it, you can always do Kovacs or in-game aim trainers. For controller players, I recommend Raiders 1v1 aim duel map. That's a really good map for controller players. And next, develop great game sense by playing more 1v1s in ranked. Developing your game sense is a crucial part to becoming a great fighter, as the more you know what people are likely to do, the easier it is to end the fights. We can do this by playing more ranked and creative 1v1s, and it is as simple as just learning what people do and learning different playstyles by fighting different people. A lot of bad fighters have a lot of bad mistakes and bad habits that they always do, and breaking these habits can simply help them improve a lot faster. And some of these common bad habits are just taking bad angles, bad 50-50s, and rushing their edits. Here's a list of more common bad habits that people have, but the way that you fix these bad habits is by just playing and intentionally working on that habit. So if you know you take bad angles, all you have to do is just have on a piece of paper or keep it in mind that I need to take good angles only, or in your head you need to say good angles only. That's how you get better at breaking these bad habits, but breaking the habits does not come in one day, it comes over time. So if you just work on breaking your bad habits, then you'll eventually get better. Next, learn from every fight. There is always something that you can learn, whether you're fighting a bad player or a good player. You're always going to do something wrong in that fight, so writing it down or keeping track of what you're doing wrong in your fights can help you improve in the long term, because you know what are your common mistakes that you make, and you'll know what to fix and what to work on. One thing I also see a lot of players doing is trying to have super flashy mechanics or try to style on players like Peterbot or a different pro. Literally, if you just take your time with the fights and you take your time and you do things correctly in your fights, you'll win a drastic amount of fights, rather than if you just try to look flashy and hit a cool edit on somebody. It literally will help you in the long run. That's what I did, and I started playing extremely well. Speaking of that, the next tip is focus on winning 100% of your fights instead of winning them quickly. If you focus on winning 100% of your fights, you'll win more fights often than not, because you're focused on purely just winning the fights. If it takes 3 minutes or even 5 minutes to win the fight, do what you gotta do. As long as you're winning the fight at the end of the day, that just means you'll get better. So take your time, take good angles only, set up good pieces, anything you gotta do to win the fight. Now, my next tip for getting better at fighting is always attempt to find better players to fight against. There is always someone that is going to be better than you at fighting, and if you fight against them every day, all day, you'll eventually have to get better, because that's the only person you're fighting, right? So I like to go in Discord servers and find good people to 1v1, and I do that pretty much a lot of my day, just so I can work on my fighting skills and getting better. Another thing is becoming friends with better players. This is because you'll eventually get to their skill level as long as they're helping you out, or if you're 1v1ing them every day, or if you're just asking questions, you'll eventually get better by just playing with them and being in calls and asking questions. So if you just can do that every day, you'll eventually have to get better at fighting, because if you're not, then you're just not doing something right, or you're just ignoring all the advice or all the work that you're doing, then you just don't care enough to get better at fighting. Alright, and my last piece of advice is there is not one thing that you can change in a single day to instantly become better at fighting. It takes time and consistency. I used to suck at fighting last year. That's when I first started really grinding competitive, but over time I put in time and effort into working into my fighting skill, even if it was like a small percent a day. I literally did something that would help me get better, and now I'm able to win more 1v1s. I'm more confident in fighting in cash cups and duo cash cups, solo cash cups, and I'm just overall a better player than I was a year ago. Now I have some common questions that people usually ask when trying to get better at fighting, and the first one is creative or ranked. Now the thing about creative is that you get less ping, more FPS, and it feels better overall to play, but there's also another good factor about creative is that you can get more reps in, and with Fortnite is heavily based on how many reps you can put into it. So honestly, I'm gonna have to say for just simply getting better at straight out fighting, creative, but if you want to get better at fighting in game, I would eventually swap to ranked after a while. Next, do you need to watch pros to get better at fighting? In my honest opinion, it helps, but I rarely watch pros. I watch a few pros. I watch Jiven. That's about it. I watch Cease, Peterbot sometimes. I mean, I barely put in time watching pros. So you don't really need to watch and study pros to get better at the game, as long as you're putting in time and effort into getting better and improving yourself. Next, where to find better players to fight against. To find better players to fight against, I would say check in the higher tier scrim Discord servers. From NA, it's Vital. For EU, it's Noble Scrims. I would check there and try and find good players to 1v1 against. And honestly, it's kind of hard to pick because some servers have good players, but they're just more unknown. And you just kind of gotta hope you get a good player each time you pick to 1v1. Alright, best creative game mode to improve. For game sense, honestly, I would say Zone Wars, Realistics, and maybe even Box Fight, because there's a limited amount of materials in there. Only because with the limited amount of materials, you have to use them more wisely, so you have to know how to end the fights pretty quickly, or you have to know how to use your mats efficiently. Whereas PGs is very based on mechanics, so if you're trying to get better mechanics, I would probably do PGs, but if you're trying to develop more game sense, I would say play Realistics, Box Fights, and Zone Wars. Alright, and last question, how to get better game sense. This one honestly is really just playing the game and putting in a lot of reps and keeping track of what's good and what's bad. Over time, you'll eventually know what's good and what's bad, and the outcomes of certain things. If you do certain edits and peaks and stuff like that, you'll eventually get better. So just play the game more. That's my advice for game sense. Alright, that was that, and I hope you guys enjoyed and got something useful out of that. Again, that is just things that I've done to get better at the game, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and peace out. Thank you guys for all the support, and see you guys later. Peace.